Testing, testing.
Testing.
We are ready.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, everyone. The seminar for the day is, as it says right there, Indie Startup for Dummies. Can't read. Which means unavoidable mistakes, self-induced misery, and a little bit of good luck. My partner here is Jetro Lauha, and I am Jani Kahrama. And sure, let's get started.
Yep. And I would like to that we welcome open discussion, so please feel free to ask anything, and we'll try to answer. And let's see how the time goes, how much we have time for the slides, but please interrupt if you have some points.
And basically, this is more like a free-form discussion where we just kind of go through the motions and what has happened with our company since the inception. There's a little bit of tips, some experiences, and but overall, just don't follow the PowerPoint too much because, you can catch up on that later on. So yeah, basically the company was founded in December 2006 after, both of us had that it would be good to make good games with good people and have control over what you do, as opposed to the opposite, which was working in a company that was VC funded, where the money took the control and strategy was, not in the hands of the people who were actually doing stuff. So, what we go through here is how we got started, how we burned through our savings, how we got a little bit of money together, and basically up to our present day situation where the company is 4 full-time people, 1 part-timer, and we are approved Wii, iPhone, and PlayStation 3 developers, and we have a couple of projects going, and
Yeah, actually that covers already.
Yeah. So moving right along.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about why we want to self-publish or have more control ourselves for the publishing process. Some of the paperwork which is officially really required for any company, and where we raise the money, some mistakes we have made, some commentary on the sales channels, and some lucky strikes we have, what has been going well for us, and also some tips for the war. So let's go on for the self-publishing.
Yeah. So why to it really looks like right now with the marketing situation, the platforms that are out there. If you look at the iPhone, the WiiWare, Live Arcade, Xbox Community Games, PlayStation Network, all the different PC distribution channels, it's a really, really interesting time to be an indie developer. There is a potential and a possibility to actually get a project started, fund it yourself, fund it with support funding, and publish it yourself for actually, for the benefit of having most of the revenue instead of the publisher taking it, and maintaining the control of your IP so that you actually own what you create, which is a big thing. The reason we've bolded there is actually the kind of reality of things. Reality for us anyway. Let's say that there is not much information out there yet on how the different channels are selling. Sure, you can go to VG charts and look at the revenue made by Live Arcade games, but WiiWare is really a young channel. There are estimates of downloads, but not really confirmed numbers. The iPhone App Store just launched, so you don't really know how much games were actually selling there. But of course, we're interested in finding those out. Despite that, the information that we had when we started the company was it seemed to point that if we do things right, take things step by step, and build a slow, short revenue stream, that we could actually make a company with a small team that would be profitable. The reason why we keep the headcount small, obviously, is that well, you can't count on success in any of the channels. So let's say that if you make your game, you put it out on Live Arcade or WiiWare. Of course, all the big numbers and the big PR hoo-ha out there says that yeah, you make millions and so on. But realistically, if you expect like 1,000 sales on the first month, that's probably good. I mean, you should rely on your game selling maybe 1,000 copies on the first month, and that would be the realistic level of expectations. And if you listen to the account managers, they tell you that 10,000 is a bottom case for 3 months, and you should expect 25 and hope for 75,000 sales. If that happens, all the better.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, then we're a profitable indie company, and then we can grow our headcount. But right now, the best way to start is to have a small team of guys who actually know what they're doing, with experience. I mean, experienced people who are able to independently create graphics, code for an exotic piece of hardware, and so on.
We have had some tries with publishers, and we, for example, when we were starting up the company, we got a good connection with the publisher, and we pitched for a project. It took like 6 months to discuss, and we create a pitch for the concept and or graphics, some concept stuff, and even some prototypes for some technical stuff. And eventually we got green lighted, and the project was approved. And this was like a huge opportunity for us, because it was going to be quite a big budget for the game, in a way that it would have been a perfect way to kickstart our company, even if it would just have been a work for hire project, not our concept or anything or our IP, but it would have given us savings for next project, so we could just entirely self-fund for the next one. Unfortunately, what happened was like we got green-lighted, and a week later they canceled the project. And naturally, at that point, we had built our business case and future estimates of money flow and everything, like a big spreadsheet, and calculate everything. And when you take like over 200k euros out of that equation, it kind of invalidates the whole thing at that point, and we have to start from scratch in that way, start to make a new spreadsheet, calculate what are we going to do next.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit of addition to that story. The developers really, as Jetro mentioned, 6 months altogether in the year. 6 months from original discussion, like, hey, there could be a game that you guys could develop for us. Then you make the concept doc. They like it, but they would like to see more prettier pictures. You make the prettier pictures. Really nice. The particles. Well, Jetro codes a particle prototype. Okay, they're going to look like this. Oh, really? This is nice. But how are you going to solve the networking? There's not going to be. Oh, well, that's okay. and the conversation goes on. And whenever we take step by step, moving things forward and keeping their marketing, their VPs, their decision makers, and everyone going having to be convinced, like, what technology are you going to use? Well, we have this cooperation with this really experienced game studio, and we can use their console engine as the backplane. Oh, really? Well, that's great. And again, we move forward. Then, like, after the 5 months of waiting, it was the message that we heard was, guys, your concept, your budget is really right where we want it. The original creator really likes your design as well. He says that you're really taking it to the next level. And we even have channel approvals now. So yeah, everything is looking great. We just got to wait out the sales numbers for the other title that we made. Like, okay, well, let's wait. What happened was that they launched this other title on the same week as this minor IP called Halo 3 came out. and they launched the next BLA game on that same week. The sales guys obviously were quite surprised that their game wasn't selling. So that because their live arcade game wasn't selling, and they kind of didn't notice this little side effect of the whole live arcade revenue dropping 40% for months because of Halo 3. Just the Halo effect, so to speak. Then the publisher dropped their entire digital distribution strategy. They canceled like 5 projects, and because ours were so good, we survived a week longer in their hesitation before they canceled. But just think about it. 6 months, everything looking great. The project is right there they want. Their business cases have all been set up. Then they get a setback with one game, and they drop their entire strategy. So that's the kind of partners that you would be working with in the case of not self-publishing, but working for a publisher.
If it sounds like a scary and horrible experience, I think we are lucky in a way that we got the news early. We hadn't built the game almost ready, and then get the news that, okay, we are canceling you. That would be just horrible, more awful than this one. So I think it was perfectly okay to get at that point, even that it had taken so long and whatever. So I'm quite happy it didn't go further than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it did force us. The whole setback made us recalculate our whole strategy for the company. Like, where do we get the cash? What project do we start on? But it was way better to get that news before we had recruited people. I mean, sure, it was a couple of sleepless nights again to go through the Excel sheets, figuring out how to pack. But at least there weren't people that you would have to first recruit and then let go. So, yeah, way better.
There's the point about some publishers, marketers. They ask always innovation. You have a question?
Yeah, just about the publishers. Did you try to convince them that or did you even discuss them about the XBLA 40% drop down?
No, they gave that information to us, and it didn't make sense. I mean, it didn't make a difference to them.
You know, when they have a big public company and there's a board just have a strategic decision that they just drop the entire business line altogether, there it's not like any chance some small developer saying really could try at least with this one. So it's kind of unlikely.
Yeah. Again, there, just like previous experience from other projects before we started on our own, I said over there that the PR, the people who walk around all the exhibitions when you're showing off whatever project you have, let's say on GDC or Leipzig or wherever Game Expo, you're going to find a lot of publishers shopping. So they will be there, they will be excited about your project, they will be excited about innovation, they want to keep the discussions, and after the expo, then most likely you're going to get an email, maybe 2. They actually go through the business case and they have the strategic discussion, designed by committee and all that stuff. Then most likely the innovation is not something they are bold enough to afford. I mean, if it's something that is totally new, then even if they like what they see in the expo, it's still not a strong chance of you getting a contract. I mean, I must say that I'm really pleasantly surprised by for example, by PlayStation Network and the guys in Santa Monica. If you look at the games coming out on PS3, the downloadable stuff, I mean, most of it is published by Sony, so it's not independently done. But still, I tip my hat to the fact that they are actually trying out weirder concepts than actually see on other downloadable channels.
Usually it is up to so that there has to be on the publisher side somebody was so excited for your project that he will act as a champion for it inside for the whole project. That's kind of the way I think only way with publishers to get anything more unique in. And I don't know how can you get the champion inside publisher, but if you can, then that's the way.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, the mountain of paperwork to go through, it's listed right there. I mean, when you start up your limited liability company, OY in Finnish, then you need to go through all that paperwork, probably a little bit more, but documented. And when you actually look into it on the official websites, then it's really a step-by-step process. And I'm not going to go through that more than that. Actually, I admit right there in the bottom that we had someone do it for us.
Yeah, you can pick a professional who has done it and multiple times. Just pay them a few €100 and they will handle it all for you. And it's probably easier that way.
Okay.
Then about the business plan.
Yeah. Okay. So after we had the little crash and burn with the pitch, then basically we were kind of back to the starting point. Jetro had done a prototype on his own time. You probably saw it in. I mean, if you were here last year, we participated in the game development competition. It's this kind of physics music thing. So that was what we had on the table. It was strange gameplay concept, a little bit of innovation there, and we figured that okay, let's move forward with that one. I mean, it's what we have. It's concrete. We have a prototype, so let's find funding to self-publish that. And so the next step was, of course, building the business case on top of this project, finding the money, finding where you would actually get support funding, public money for it. Go back a little bit.
This one? No?
Yeah. Well, anyway, so when we were and back to the kind of first step, we had already put 6 months of our own savings into the publisher pitch. So when that fell together, we didn't have that much of our private buffers ready anymore. And so, well, we had to move forward, of course. So it was back to planning and moving together with Cinnamon Beats. And the risks here that are listed is really that when you're making your business plan of building your expectations, like I said in the beginning, like expect that 1,000 sales or even less, depending on your platform. If you're on the PC, then you can divide by 10 again, and maybe expect 100 sales per week, maybe even 10 sales per week. If you go to the console channel, then yeah, like expect a few thousand per month and build your business case on top of that, and see if you can survive on that little amount of sales. Then kind of expand your sales by going multi-platform, but always take the good amount of time buffer between the platforms.
We had a spreadsheet which showed like one month by month each like expected income and what kind of download count we would get and what kind of conversion ratio we would expect at that point for each game. We were like supposing that we launch a game and then this amount months or a year after we'll have this new game, and this kind of toying with the idea how could the money flow go and at which point we run out of money and go to negative ever. And at that point it's actually really easy to tweak just a bit amount the numbers and they start to look really, really good and you see that, oh, now I'm going to get really rich very soon. But it's really a trap because it's very easy to, for example, take conversion rate, which is like how many sales you got from downloads on a PC channels, for example. And typical conversion rate is 1% for a typical game. If you have a 2%, then it's a great game, and if you have more than that, then it's really a hit. That's how it goes for PopCap games or whatever. And if you just pick let's try 1% or 2%. Do you think 2% is quite small? I can assume 2%, but that's like doubling your sales without any grudge for it before you know if you have a hit or so. So it's very important to stay realistic at that point.
Yeah, and this I really can say from personal experience with some other companies that I've witnessed, that the Excel sheet trap, it works even with experienced managers. It's not to criticize the mobile games business, but back when I was more involved with it, it was really kind of easy to see the belief in the explosion of mobile gaming just if you tweak this little number on the Excel sheet. I mean, and tweaking that Excel sheet has been going on for like 6 years, and maybe the explosion is still waiting to happen. So I don't know what kind of number tweaking did. But yeah, so plan on the worst case. When you start your company, just plan on the worst case and really be really negative about your worst case, so that don't expect much sales at all. Even if you get them, then expect the money to arrive later than you expect. It's not really the budget that kills a small company. I mean, everything can look good when you have a big number over a year of sales. But when you plot your company, then it's all about the cash flow of the company. When you need to pay wages to your people, that's what you need to be most careful about. Does this payment come in time for the guys to get their wages this month? Okay, there's a 3-month gap here because this channel isn't paying until July, and maybe they pay 30 days after the ending of the fiscal quarter and so on. And you have to anticipate these kind of delays and really expect that the money you need is probably going to arrive 2 months too late. So what if you don't pay your guys for 2 months? I mean, do you tell them the money is coming? Really it is. I mean, this payment is coming. Or how do you juggle the things so that you keep the cash flow in order? I mean, that's the thing you need to be most careful about.
Yeah, and when you are starting a company, you can imagine that there will actually be quite a long period easily than when you get no income at all. So it's good to start saving money long time before you actually start the company if you think that you might do it, because that really helps if you have a good one with when you start the company actually.
What does it mean that sales one person? All the games are selling same time or
The question was that what does it mean the 1% of the conversion ratio? Yeah. Sorry?
what is 100%? All games together?
Like, is it for all games together? Basically, the conversion ratio means that if you get like 100 downloads from your website, for example, for one game, then you can expect that on average game you will get one sale for that 100. And if you have 2 games and the other game also gets 100 downloads, then you can basically expect that you can get one sale for that game as well. But I would say that, of course, if you have 2 very similar games, then you probably get a lower conversion ratio. But if the games don't overlap and you can find people interested in the game, so probably it's per game conversion ratio, I believe so.
Yeah, so for indies, the self-publishing is all about the conversion rates. The reason why we want to be on consoles is because conversion rates are better on consoles. I mean, sure, there are the other console benefits, like having just one set of hardware to develop for instead of the whole PC wilderness of system configurations. But really, if you expect on PC the average conversion rate to be 1%, like if you get, again, the 100,000 downloads, you're going to get 1,000 sales. If you sell at $10, then you're going to get 7,000.
I would like to point out, of course, this conversion rates means that if you have a demo version, like a free demo version, then you can get the downloads and then the sales. But if you don't have a demo version, then of course your conversion ratio is kind of 100% because each copy is already sold, which get downloads. But this is not the whole truth. If you don't have a demo version, then it's typical that you get a higher percentage of people requesting money back, and usually it's good to give this as a service or a guarantee that you can have a refund if somebody doesn't like the product. So even if you don't have a demo version that's just selling the game, then your conversion ratio is still not actually going to be 100%. So of course this is always like what kind of case is happening. This 1% is the typical for PC or Mac downloadable games.
Again, the console conversion rates. On PC, as said, it ranges from 1 to 3%, depending on if it's an average seller or a hit game. On the consoles, a year ago when the live arcade was booming, like everyone was so excited and so much trying to get in there, it was because of Geometry Wars pretty much. And on some months, the conversion rates for Geometry Wars were astronomical. We're talking about, well, I might be lying, and my memory is pretty bad these days, but it could have been even up to 30% of the conversion rate on the console. So obviously, every game developer in the world wanted to be there. I mean, sure, that's flattened out. The live arcade has a lot more content these days, a lot more. The consumer attention is divided between so many different titles out there, so that it's come down to between 3 and 7, I think, these days. I mean, you can check these out from the VG charts and check the total number of downloads against the number of sales. But yeah, want to be on consoles is pretty much that. It's higher sales for your title.
Probably also Steam is very comparable to the console channels, even if it's for PC games. So it's more like what kind of sales channel are we talking about? Yeah. We could go forward and tell a bit about how we raised the money.
Right. Okay. So we had the Cinnamon Beats prototype. We wrote. We put a lot of effort into the game concept document, so that you really had like 10 to 15 pages, nice pretty pictures, and a prototype. And so you really had a concrete bit of, evidence. This is the game that you're making. We were really, really kind of lucky with our concept, and maybe lucky in the way that we presented ourselves, because people responded to us in a very positive way. We spoke about how we are the indie and we want to go self-publish, build a profitable company, that we're not aiming for an exit and we don't want to sell out to publishers. We just really want to build a company that grows organically, makes its own games, and just is profitable from those. And that story was really well responded to. That story, together with the game, which was a little quirky concept by itself. First, it got positive response from Nordic. They have this developer support twice a year, where they just basically you get free money for your game. I mean, sure, you set up milestones and you get payments against deliveries, but still that money doesn't come with so many strings attached. With that commitment from Nordic Game Program, we now had the indication from one financing instance with which we could walk to the next one, saying that, okay, these people believe in us with this sum, so obviously our game has stood up to a due diligence of sorts. So please, can you sign up to our business case and development budget like this? And it's that story which is kind of the most important here, that as an indie, many have, let's say that the hippie indies have this kind of romantic notion that you just need a little bit of money from somewhere and then you just make your game and you get your money back. And it was so much more difficult than that in reality. Just when you have multiple sources of funding and you build your project and you build your funding from different components, like, okay, as it says right there, we have Nordic Game Program funding us, we have Tekes funding us, we have an entrepreneur loan from Finnvera. It's kind of ridiculous in a way that you think that if you have 3 different funding instances, your chances of getting money, but it's quite the opposite, because all of these different instances depend on the other ones to also chip in before they give their money. So you need to speak to all of them at the kind of same time and build their confidence that yes, those two are committed, so please commit yourself as well. And you're the Duracell bunny between these three instances kind of all the time. Nordic Game Program was different in the way that they didn't need much more convincing than a good project plan and an indication that we have planned our budget for the title. But for Tekes and Finvera, oh boy, you need to have both of them on board for either one to get to fund you. This was really the most kind of time-consuming and the kind of biggest learning experience on the business side for the indie startup. That when one chips in, it's most likely that the others chip in as well. So you have your whole budget put together. But if one says no, then probably the other ones are gonna just let go of you as well. So really, it's a matter of building a confidence up to multiple funding instances at the same time.
And just for the very start of the company, it's also possible to apply for Starttiraha in Finland, which is like few hundred euros per month for a few months or so. So it's not a big sum, but some ideas it could be a meaningful sum of money to help support living during the initial phase. But this is something we actually didn't do, and you have to remember to apply that for before you set up the company, because you can't do that retroactively.
Yeah. Next slide. Right. So, well, I kind of went through this one, so let's hop.
Yep.
Okay, so this was all. It was kind of a jigsaw puzzle. Like I mentioned, the three different places had to be all convinced, but what ties into it is everything you do at the same time as well. So when you show a drive forward when you're building your funding, then that builds your confidence in the other areas as well. So for Nordic, for example, when we pitched in with a document, it was just the game concept document, the budget, the project plan, and all that. But at the same time, we were also telling them that we are currently discussing with platform holders, and we have an indication of interest from them, and we will keep you updated as those things develop. So when the platform holder, one of the console manufacturers, actually liked our game concept and said that, okay, it's approved that if you self-publish it, it will go on sale in their channel. Then suddenly you have your confidence from the distribution channel as well. And then you go back to the people who would give you money, telling them, okay, I not only have this good game, but I have these different distributors already prepared to take the game. So it's the whole cake that you need to offer them. Like, okay, I have the concept here. If you just give the money, I can even show the sales, and I have this proven place where I can sell the game. And these things put together, it's a long process. I mean, altogether, I think it was like 2 or 3 months, to maybe even longer, to put all these things together, and the things happening at the same time. Like you need your money, you're applying for that, you're making the prototype, you're polishing that, pushing it to the distribution channels, getting their input, putting it forward back to the people with the money, and so on. And
even at the same time, we were looking for more people to join us, and also discussing with them about what kind of deal are we going to make in the company, at what kind of salaries we have. Try to secure the actual start of we getting any funding to pay salaries to others, and all that adds up to quite a lot of work.
Yeah, it's perhaps here that I would give one of the. It's actually at the end of the presentation, but one tip for the war is that lying is wrong, but forward-looking statements are okay.
Yeah, that happens in the industry all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the press releases you see are actually forward-looking statements, but you can just read them. Okay, this is happening now, but whatever it's in the future, maybe.
So if someone asks you how many people do you have working in your company, then it's not a lie if you expect it to be true by the time you would expect to be caught.
Okay.
So really, it's what I mean is that when you start up as an indie and you're working in the garage, and for example, console developers, they if you want to get your dev kit, then there's a questionnaire you need to fill, and basically, for that, all of them expect your company to have an office, to have a team, to have steady income, and all that. But if you're just starting out, then obviously it would be difficult to have all that.
By
But
the way, we are a little bit short on time, so we should already start wrapping up a bit. So we had these mistakes, but we actually already thought about this slide.
Yeah.
I could say that some few other mistakes we have a problem of divided focus in a way that we like to start things and wonder about what kind of games we could and project them. But it's a really hard problem to you actually easily underestimate how long does it take to get something done actually. So that's why what we have been suffering as well. Even we have had experience from plenty other projects.
Yeah.
And there's some we could have done some project management stuff better, like he has been complaining that I was sitting like few weeks in some cave just doing something and he doesn't know anything about what I am doing because I haven't bothered to do any task lists or show how the code is progressing.
A bit too honest, but
yeah, that's like I can imagine that it gives the others more confidence if you take the extra steps and make sure you have this kind of split up the project better way. But of course, typical waterfall or whatever process model, all of them are kind of annoying, and you have to find your own and try to find what works best for you. Sorry, repairing what? The question was, do we work on old pieces of code or not? So do we repair?
yeah, like do we mix work between our engineers so that they're working on the same bit of code, or do you split the work?
It depends on the case, I would say. Of course, it's very important to leverage anything you have done before, so that you can minimize the work you need to do now. So that's something I always try to do, and always try to steal whatever open source code I can find. But I very carefully look at the license if I'm allowed to do that. Everybody uses zlib and libpng and libjpeg and whatever libraries, and I recommend that you could do that as well, and go look to your own code as well and try to reuse everything, whatever you can in a sensible way. About the channels, we already talked a bit about PC and XBLA. A few words about the VMware. Can you say something?
Well, yeah. Maybe the channel is a little bit of overview in general. As said, you would, as an indie, you would want to be on a console if you can afford it. And the problem with affording it is really the QA costs and the technical features required by each of the platforms. So let's say that you're making your live arcade game. The game is exaggerating a little bit, but the game is probably 30% of the work. Then you have your rich presence and chats and network and all the different events and the requirements for features in the game from the platform itself, the Xbox Live achievements and so on. So it's not just the features, but also the really heavy technical testing that you need to do so that your game actually performs as expected in each and every situation.
All console channels have this kind of process, and they are quite strict with it. So you need to go through the QA, and usually it's many companies actually use external. It costs like tens of thousands of dollars usually. So or if you can do it yourself, you have to take a lot of time to get it right.
Yeah, maybe as a quick reference point, one publisher that I spoke with, they hired this external testing house to test an XBLA game. So they purchased 1 week of testing, 2 pre-testing rounds, and 1 final testing round for the game. And I believe that this cost them 100,000 euros.
Although I think they got ripped off.
I mean, yes, it sounds like much, and the other numbers that I've heard are pretty much like $20,000 for the testing round. But I mean, testing, which probably costs quite a bit. So yeah, when you're developing on a console, remember to plan a heck of a lot of time, not just to get your game done, but to get the game on the platform. And for that, basically, the commentary that we have here is that we have, I mean, one of the mistakes that we have done is really that we have underestimated that as well. I mean, we were aware of things, we were aware of the numbers, we were pretty much aware of the stuff that you need to do. I mean, getting the list of things that you must support, it's right there. But when you actually make a project plan out of it and figure that all of this has to be done and tested, you're going to end up in a tight situation if you're self-funding or support or publicly funded for the game. And for that, it actually looks like that for us, when we speak of console, including the iPhone, I mean, the iPhone still has technical requirements as well, but there's not the kind of next-gen rich presence, in-game messaging stuff that you would need to support yet. But still, the conversion rate, the channel, and the hardware, it has a similar business case. So it looks like that we are, well, let's say that we're very interested in the iPhone as a lead platform, simply because the investment of having a game in there, well, is significantly smaller. That's offset right now because of the fact that nobody knows any iPhone sales numbers, of course. So there's a risk there as well.
Yeah, about the PS3 PlayStation Network, there's the normal development kit is quite expensive, but you can actually develop on the just less than $1,000. So that's actually quite cheap way to get developing on PS3. The difference is like the debug kit is just a normal PS3 compared to the development kit, which has more memory and all sort of debugging help for developers. But if you are making like a bit smaller game, then you can probably just run even debug builds fine on the debug kit. So that's a friendly thing for indie developers.
Yeah.
I think already mentioned about this channel payments and everything. And we already also mentioned about the Cinema Beats case and tips for war. Yeah, being confident, for example.
Right. As said, well, I already mentioned the forward-looking statements and how they're sometimes necessary. But yeah, moving forward, the problem with Finns altogether in the industry is that, I mean, we know our stuff. We're technically very talented, even on a global scale. And having some experience from outsourcing, I really can vouch for the fact that Finnish engineers are really, really good. I mean, they have insight and the capability to design things, and that doesn't seem to be common out there. So yeah, having the confidence to really kind of come forward with that, really being proud and telling the publishers that we really know our stuff, and we know this stuff way better than your army of less competent people in the cheaper countries, then, I mean, getting that message across.
Jani has first-hand experience being in China and Korea and everything, so he has really bad war stories from there, from the developers who just know how to cut and paste code together and don't understand what it does.
That was a bit more honesty than I was expecting for, but thanks. But yeah, I mean, I have the war stories. Buy me a drink and I won't stop. The moving forward, really, just being confident, saying that you know your stuff, being proud about it, making noise about it. Just the whole marketing in Finnish game studios is really ridiculously poor. I mean, we like to believe that just making the most incredible game ever is good enough, and then we just kind of hide in the cellar and we work on the game for 5 years, and then we come up with the greatest game ever, and then nobody's heard of it. So just remember that you need to make noise. You need someone. You need your Duracell bunny out there who's banging the drums and blowing the horns and all the time keeping you on the map. And it's important. I mean, even if your business is not directly with publishers, you still need your own shark swimming with theirs out there. And that's important.
Okay, I think we should wrap up now because it's almost 5 and we need to let Petri physics next.
All right. So, any questions?
Any last questions? One. So the question is, how do we see Nokia Engage platform? It's probably best for us not to comment a lot on the mobile games because we both come from mobile game company background, doing years of mobile games as professionally, and we just decided when starting up a new game that we try to keep ourselves a bit distance to the mobile space as a whole because we are kind of fed up with it for a bit, and we want to have a change and do on PC and consoles for fun.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
better not to say much about the mobile channels at all, I think.
Well,
iPhone, we see iPhone is a bit different case, actually.
Yeah, that was my point as well. I mean, when we look at mobile games, the reason why we don't want to be there is the whole fragmented handset market. And, well, frankly, we haven't looked at Engage much at all, so we don't know how much it really abstracts the platform. But since there are software rendering and hardware rendering devices and different input methods, well, let's say that it's much easier for a developer and an indie, really, because our strategy is not mobile at all, so we don't want to solve the problem of fragmented handsets. Then, if you compare it to, well, the other mobile device that we mentioned earlier, and the fact that it's a unified hardware platform, you just make a game for that device and that's it. That's important for us, and Engage doesn't, to the best of our knowledge, solve that problem yet.
Yeah. Okay, maybe just one question more. Okay, the question was, since we are indie developers, we really need to get stuff done. So do we think it would be a good idea to use Unity 3D or XNA game development, whatever? I think in general it is a good idea to leverage platforms like that. I know that some indie companies actually use quite heavily the Unity engine, and now it's even better looking because they just announced iPhone support. For XNA, also we have had discussions with other indies, and some are quite interested in it because it's now going to open as a new platform for Xbox side as well. There's some sales decisions where some indies are not very happy about how the actual channel works, but in a way it's very interesting for indies. Although personally I think it's a bit annoying that it introduces a platform lock-in to the XNA because it's a .NET and you can't actually engine written in C++ to the XNA platform. You can do that in XBLA, but not in XNA as is. Okay, that's then for today, and let's go to the next presentation. Thank you very much.